this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, along with our house DJ Tolliver. And Tolliver, in that debate, I have to say I was surprised at how much we heard things like, well, I actually agree with JD about that. I actually agree with Tim. But then I realized this is the first time that we have had two Midwesterners in a debate, a vice presidential debate, since 1976.
Honestly, I think we just saw them become best friends. I think they hung out after the debate.
I'm not sure about that. But anyway, we're going to get to that. I do want to say as we start here, we are thinking of everybody recovering from Hurricane Helene in North Carolina and Georgia and Florida and Tennessee and South Carolina. I've been listening to some of the public radio stations in those places. They're doing an incredible job keeping listeners up to date on what's going on, especially at a time when people don't have cell service. So thanks to all those stations for doing that. So to the debate between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, we want to get your reaction. Did what you see and hear solidify your choice in this election, or has it changed your views about the candidates? Tolliver, how can people reach us?
They can call us at 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can write to us at listentothemiddle.com.
And before we get to your calls, last week we asked you, do you expect Social Security to be there for you when you need it? And do you want to see it reformed in any way? Here's what we heard from some of you who left us a voicemail after the show.
Hi, my name is Candace. I'm calling from Colorado Springs. I don't believe that Social Security will be around when I am ready to retire. And so that's disappointing to me, of course. And I think absolutely the cap needs to be lifted and folks with access to more resources need to pay their fair share.
My name is Josh. I live in East Lansing. People are living longer. I think it only makes sense to have my generation and the generations behind us work longer before we can take Social Security.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Southard from Oxford, Ohio. I'm not under 20. I just turned 60. Social Security monies are only collected on earned income, i.e. wages. what about all the wealth of Schedule D income and Schedule E income? Certainly if the amount at which we stop collecting Social Security on has not kept pace with inflation, why not?
Well, thanks to everyone who called in, and you can hear that full episode on our podcast in partnership with iHeart Podcasts on the iHeart app or wherever you listen to podcasts. So now to our topic for this hour, your reaction to the first debate between vice presidential running mates Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. Tolliver, the number again, please.
Yeah, it's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or write to us at listentothemiddle.com.
And let's meet our panel. Politico senior politics editor Charlie Mahtesian is with us. Charlie, welcome to The Middle.
Hi, Jeremy.
It's great to have you here. And USA Today chief political correspondent Phillip Bailey is also with us from Louisville, Kentucky. Phillip, great to have you back.
Jeremy, as always, thanks for having me.
Well, before we get to the calls, let me hear from each of you. What stood out to you in this debate? I'll start with you, Phillip.
Well, look, if, a large part of this campaign, Jeremy, has been marked by this unprecedented clash. We've had 2 assassination attempts.
Right.
Former president who has gone through many legal trials, conversations about toning down the rhetoric. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you got the debate of old. You have a very civil-minded, we all thought we were going to get a bloody, bruising boxing match, and we got a Midwestern bromance going on here. This was old school civility. I think for a lot of people who may have been used to politics for the past 8 years, it feels like we all just got into the DeLorean and went back in time to the 1970s and maybe 80s. The two men certainly had disagreements, sharp disagreements on immigration, abortion, January 6th, and democracy itself. But at the end of the day, if you notice, the two of them were always very complimentary of each other. Senator Vance often called Governor Walz by his first name. I think on the gun debate and in the school conversation, they definitely came off and bonded as dads, being very empathetic to one another, often saying, I agree with you. I see your point. Governor Walz, I see your point. Senator Vance. So this is such an odd thing that happened today because it's been defined by how nasty our politics is. No, this was the old school quaint politics that everyone says they love and want so much.
Charlie Mahtesian, your thoughts on the debate?
Well, I think at the broadest level, they both met their mandate, which is, when you're a vice presidential nominee, you go into a debate like this, you're only supposed to have one of them. And your mandate is do no harm. Don't screw it up for your ticket. And I think at the end of the day, both of them probably met the bar on that, regardless of who you think may have won or lost. I think they both met that bar. But I'd have to say, if we're talking about what struck us, I agree with Phillip. It is the civility. It was really shocking to me. And it just reminded me that we have been conditioned in recent elections to expect this Donnybrook to go for the sharp-elbowed, smash-mouth, in-your-face, canned lines, just going at each other the entire time. And I was a little bit stunned, in part because I was, I think, conditioned by the other debates, but also because yesterday there was a press call that Republicans had in advance. They had, the way they do these for the media sometimes before a big event like this, and they had a bunch of Republican surrogates talking about Tim Walz and just trashing his military record, talking about stolen valor. In fact, Vance himself was sending out fundraising emails calling Walz a radical socialist, liberal, Marxist, an extremist. And then with all that set up, we get Minnesota or Midwestern nice. So that really caught me off guard.
Let's get to the phones because I'm really curious to hear what ordinary Americans thought about this. Terrell is in Birmingham, Alabama. Terrell, go ahead. What did you think of the debate?
I really enjoyed the debate. I thought it was very civil in comparison to whenever Donald Trump is debating because he acts like a child. These two men act like men. But I really noticed, and I didn't, I'm a former Marine, and, January the 6th, in my opinion, that was treason on behalf of ex-President Trump. A lot of people don't want to mention that, but that's exactly what it was. But they asked him, JD, who did Biden win the election? And he wouldn't answer that question. And that, to me, he should have answered because, this is America. It's the greatest country in the world. You don't have to make it great again. It's already great. But him running for vice president, he should have just answered the question, I thought.
Terrell, thank you very much for that, and thank you for your service as well. Phillip Bailey, one thing that he's talking about there is at the very end of the debate. January 6th didn't come up to the very end of the debate, but Tim Walz was answering a question. He turned to J.D. Vance and said, do you believe that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election? And J.D. Vance wouldn't answer the question. That is going to be a moment probably that spins around on the internet for the next 24 hours.
Well, look, Senator Vance has an audience of one in this debate, and it's Donald Trump. He knew, as probably others did, that if he answered that question forthrightly and said that no, Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, as everyone else with a half a brain in this country knows that he lost in 2020, that he would probably be thrown off the ticket, or at least a new cycle of conversation about him being thrown off the ticket. Other than that, I think J.D. Vance, though, did what he was supposed to do in this debate. He was the one underwater when you look at the polls compared to Governor Walz and also Donald Trump and Vice President Harris. So I think he came off not as a fire breather, not as MAGA Jr. He came off as very reasonable, very polite. Again, I think I don't think we can really say who won the debate. I think both of them pretty much came out even, as was said earlier, that they did no harm to their top of their ticket. But I think that Vance, more than anyone, needed to come out of here showing that he was a likable person. And I think both of them won the likability argument. And I think Vance needed that more so than anyone else. Right. On that one issue, yeah, he's talking to Donald Trump in that conversation in that portion of the debate.
And however many millions of people were watching that debate, because the last one was 67 million, I think, live on TV. Let's go to Ken, who's in Yardley, Pennsylvania. Ken, welcome to The Middle. What did you think of the debate?
Hi, I'm just going to repeat what I told the lady that answered. I was pleasantly surprised. I don't mean it was perfect. However, I don't take this as a representative sampling of who Vance is.
What do you mean by that? This
was an act. I'm sorry. I would have known to do the same thing. The one thing I mentioned, it's a powerful question that the Republicans come up with. If you have all these solutions, why are you waiting? Why haven't you done anything in the past 3 or 4 years? And the lady I talked to when I called, I think she answered it. I missed it. I think she said,
What do you think? What do you think?
She didn't have the power.
Ken, thank you for that. Charlie Mahtesian, one of the things that Ken brings up there is that it wasn't just Vance saying that, Kamala Harris has been in office for a few years. She could have done some of the things she's talking about. The same argument could be made about Donald Trump, who was in office for many years, and now he's promising new things.
Yeah, and I think, though, what you saw is a big difference stylistically between the two. I think Vance was much more comfortable for a lot of the evening, especially in the beginning. Took Walz a little time to warm up, and so he may have missed some of the opportunities that more polished debaters might have had to really poke holes in the Vance argument on some of these areas that we're talking about here. That was something that Democrats in advance, sort of warned and talked a little bit about, the manic energy that Walz brings to debates and things like that. And, the strengths he has are not really as a debater. They're, in sort of approachability and being able to break complex ideas down into things that average people can understand. I think it's the whole suburban dad, big dad energy persona that he brings. And so that's not always really well suited to a debate stage where you really need to thrust and parry. And at times, I think some Democrats will probably say privately that they wished maybe he would have poked more holes in Vance's arguments. But I think, again, that wasn't really, his mission so much.
Well, Tolliver, vice presidential debates have given us some very memorable moments over the years.
Yeah, look no further than this famous put down from Democratic Senator Lloyd Benston when he faced off against Republican Senator Dan Quayle in a 1988 VP debate.
I have as much experience in the Congress as Jack Kennedy did when he sought the presidency. I will be prepared to deal with the people in the Bush administration if that unfortunate event would ever occur.
Senator Benson.
Senator, I served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Burn. I know, really. It is worth noting, though, Tolliver, that in fact Dan Quayle did, I guess, win because he became the vice president. Lloyd Vance did not. So there is that. Anyway, we'll be right back with more of your reaction to the debate coming up on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, Ryder, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of bitch, come round here with my wife. Boom, boom.
This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories, all caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious Black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's Place, Black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they was dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place. A story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We are focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we're asking for your reaction to the vice presidential debate between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. Tolliver, what is our number?
It's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also write to us at listentothemiddle.com or on social media.
I'm here with USA Today chief political correspondent Phillip Bailey and Politico senior politics editor Charlie Mahtesian. And before we go back to the phones, Charlie, we've talked about the fact that both of these candidates are from Midwestern states. Was there pressure, therefore, on both of them to appeal in a debate like this to the geographic middle where a lot of these swing states are?
I think there was probably more pressure on Vance than Walz. Walz's rollout has been a lot more smooth. I think, he's been kind of a star on social media. Democrats have really embraced him in every way, whereas I think Vance's rollout was a little bit more unsteady. You see the videos circulating of the awkward donut shop encounters, and it's reflected in the favorability ratings. And, those are the polling ratings that are just sort of measuring your likability with the public. And Vance is underwater, meaning, he is more, his ratings are higher on the unfavorable side than the favorable side, whereas Walz is the opposite. And so I think for Vance, part of it was, and he tried to hit at this when he talked about many of you don't know me or my story. So his mission, I think, tonight was to introduce people to him, but also to show him in a different kind of light than I think they've seen him on the trail, because from what they've seen, they haven't necessarily loved him with the childless cat ladies comment and some other comments he's made that have seemed maybe unnecessarily brusque or rude. And I think this was his first big opportunity before a pretty big audience to sort of change the perception surrounding him. And this matters. The favorability really matters for somebody like Vance when he's on a ticket with Donald Trump, who has always, almost probably from the moment he was first elected president, been underwater in terms of favorability ratings. And so that is something that gets reflected particularly among certain demographic groups who just can't stand them together. And so I think it was very important that Vance show a different side.
Yeah. Let's go to Carlos, who's in Los Angeles. Carlos, what did you think of the debate?
Yes, well, thank you for taking my call. I think that what we saw today was a master deception by Vance. He's a totally different person, came out as a totally different person, different message, almost enticing women that we are your saviors. We are here for you. We are pro-family in all the sense of the word, when in fact they are the opposite. We are hearing the same message from Trump, where he's saying, I will be your protector. So that's what I see. I see right through them. They broke the window. They hide in their hand. And I ask you now, who broke the window? Oh, my goodness, I'm here to save you.
Carlos, thank you for that call. Phillip Bailey, your thoughts on what Carlos had to say there.
Well, look, I think you're already seeing it now. I think early reactions, I think you're going to have some Democrats who are going to be pretty upset because they've been revved up on anti-Trump cocktail for so long. They want this fight, right? The one thing that they were very energized when the Harris-Trump debate was how Harris sort of came out and challenged Donald Trump and was continuing to sort of poke and prod him. Even when the microphones were muted, you could still hear the vice president speaking while Trump was speaking. And I'm already seeing reactions from a lot of Democrats saying, I think this is a missed opportunity. It humanized Vance, right? You didn't mention the cat ladies
But they
comment.
don't feel the way that they did about Biden in the first debate with Trump.
Right. But I do think that there's a bit of emotional transference that's going on here, where Democrats are really itching for a fight and really want to take the Trump campaign on. And I think you might have some Democrats who are going to be disappointed that Walz didn't go after Vance a lot in the ways that he has been depicted on social media by a lot of more left-leaning progressive influencers on TikTok and other spaces.
Let's go to Kevin, who's in Tampa Bay, Florida. Kevin, welcome to the middle. Go ahead. What did you think of the debate?
So Walz could have done better. J.D. Vance lied a whole lot. And Walz did not do a good job of refuting the lies. But the real thing that brought me to call in was the whole thing about J.D. Vance talking about abortion. And, okay, make abortion go away, that's fine. You pay for them.
Okay, Kevin, thank you for that call. Yeah, just exactly what you were talking about there, Phillip. People feeling that they didn't get what they wanted out of J.D. Vance. Let's check out what Alice has to say in Grand Rapids, Michigan, a swing state. Alice, what did you think?
Aside from what was said by these two guys, my impression was Walz came across as an all-American, down-home, nice guy, honest. And then Vance, when I looked at him, it was like he was showing these narrow, sleazy eyes at the camera at times.
So did it change your views at all, or did you just sort of you just watched it with interest? I think we lost Alice there.
Those sleazy eyes.
But yeah, Charlie Mahtesian, two views there. Somebody not thinking Walz did that great, and then Alice there not so happy with what she saw from J.D. Vance, and seeing an All-American in Tim Walz.
Yeah, I tend to think like Phillip on this, in that you'll hear a louder chorus coming from the left. People who are frustrated that Walz didn't take the fight to Vance, only because Vance, I think, really energizes the left in a way that Walz doesn't really gin up the right. And it's important because, and I think you'll hear more of it from the left, criticism of Walz. And again, this isn't really rough criticism. I mean, it's just people will be disappointed. And I think because they recognize that Vance is one of the most articulate spokesmen of the MAGA wing. And he is one of the more effective articulators of this form of populist conservatism. And so I think there are a lot of progressives that are really going to have wished that Walz took the fight to him, that called him out on more issues. But I think in the end, though, when you look at what Walz was able to accomplish, he was able to accomplish some significant things, I think, particularly in terms of burnishing the ticket and his own image, because where he really seemed to shine tonight, where he seemed to get his legs, was on the human aspects of policy. When he was talking about abortion, when he was talking about childcare, when he was talking about guns, he was at his best. And I think the same was true in the end. He was strongest in talking about democracy and in January 6th. And so by those yardsticks, I think will be unfair to criticize him if Democrats are going to do that. I think he was effective in those areas.
Tolliver, some comments coming in online.
Yeah. Robert in Connecticut says, I think the debate was extremely interesting. My favorite part was definitely when Tim Walz got J.D. Vance to go off on a tangent about the process to apply for asylum, though I don't believe that either candidate clearly won. I've heard this next comment a lot. Why doesn't anyone explain that the vice president cannot enact policy? The only things a VP can do is take over for the president in the case of incapacitation and a break in the tie in the Senate. Why is Harris being blamed for things she either has not or cannot do?
I did find it interesting, Phillip, to hear so much talk about the Harris administration. There was barely a mention of Joe Biden, who is still the president.
Well, I think that's because the Trump campaign has learned that, look, you put so much stock into criticizing Biden, you have to make Harris the incumbent. She's trying to cast herself as the change agent. You have to link her and anchor her to the Biden administration. So you're going to hear the Harris administration more. You're not even going to hear much of Joe Biden. I know Donald Trump might be upset about that, considering how much he invested in it, but they're going to make her the incumbent. And I think there is a vital and important question to ask the vice president, who has not really broken from President Biden on any major issue. I know she has a lower capital gains tax rate that she wants to propose than Biden does. But the question is, well, what do you want to do different than the current president? And if you want to continue to do the things or do these different things, well, why didn't you suggest them? Why didn't you fight for them more openly in the administration? I do still think that the vice president is going to have to make some sort of commentary or speech or something from a major break at some point during their time in office where Joe Biden wanted to go this way and Kamala Harris wanted to go the other way. Otherwise, you directly inherit all of the baggage of the Biden administration.
Let's go to Mohammed, who's in Houston, Texas. Mohammed, what did you think of the debate?
I think it was great in terms of showing that this is how a normal civil debate should be, not like the ones that Donald Trump is part of. It didn't change my views about the issues that much, but since I'm a swing voter and this is my second time I vote in presidential elections, I'm originally from Middle East, so I'm a swing voter. I ask all America to be a swing voter because I come from a place and I know firsthand what party affiliation does to democracy. At least it weakens it, if not kills it. So I'm a swing voter, and I'm going to be voting both Republican and Democratic in this election. the top of the ticket, of course, I'm leaning for Democrats, but all those people who run for local offices, state offices, and all that, I will vote Republican for those.
So wait, so Mohammed, I'm just going to ask you one. I'm going to ask you one follow up there. Does that mean in the Senate race in Texas, which is very close, are you voting for Ted Cruz or Colin Allred?
Yes.
Which one?
And because I'm from Middle East, I have to think about foreign policy too when it comes to the American presidency. But yeah, for local elections, I will vote Republican.
Okay.
And J.D. Vance showed us that Republicans, absent Donald Trump, Republicans are real good, decent people, or at least they act that way absent Donald Trump. And I love that. And they are actually tougher on crime. That's one actually big reason that I will vote Republican for all the local elections.
Yeah.
But
Thank you, Mohammed, for that. And by the way, Tolliver, I think he pretended not to hear me ask the question about which one he was going to vote for. Yes, I did. Yes, I am going to vote in that. Let's, actually, that is an interesting question, Charlie Mahtesian. Do you think we're going to see a lot of people, and we have seen in the polls, in some of the key swing Senate races, that maybe, in North Carolina, people are saying they're going to vote for the Democrat in the Senate race by like 17 points, and yet Kamala Harris is losing in the same poll to Donald Trump by 2 points. There's a lot of split ticket voting that may happen this year.
Yeah, sort of. If you believe the polls, it's a shocking number of Senate races could be split ticket races. And what's remarkable is if you take a look at, I think there were 69 Senate races in 2016 and 2020. 68 of them were won by the candidate who is the same party as the presidential candidate who won their state. And so that means there's almost no split ticket voting anymore. Yet if you look across the battleground states now, the Democratic Senate incumbents are ahead in almost every race. Democrats are doing really surprisingly well. And that was true even when Biden was trailing by, big deficits in the polls. And so that is a really interesting component of what's happening here in this election, that this does seem to be happening, this split ticket phenomenon, because that's a phenomenon we haven't seen in a long time. We used to, as a country, do that pretty frequently. We don't do that anymore.
Even do you think, Phillip Bailey, with stuff like these abortion referenda that are on the ballots in places like Florida and Arizona, do you think you're going to see people who turn out to vote in favor of abortion rights, but they'll also vote for Trump-Vance?
I think that there's a possibility for that. I think what's happened here over these past 8 years is that Donald Trump and the injection of populism into the Republican Party has shuffled a lot of our traditional thinking about politics. When you look at, for example, his rates with working class voters, right? You had union leaders speaking at the Republican convention. So I think that some of this there's a Trump phenomenon. I think we've seen a couple of glimpses of the post-Trump Republican world, with Nikki Haley staying in the race and the support that she was getting. And I think you saw a little bit of that even with J.D. Vance tonight, who will be the natural successor to the MAGA mantle, now that Trump has said, at least for now, that if he loses this election, he would not run again in 2028. Right. So I think that we've seen this over and over again, these midterms where the Republicans underperform when Trump's not on the ballot at all. He's his own sort of orbit. He's his own political entity that brings in a certain group of people, and no other Republican can really attract that. But there are still, though, these right-of-center voters, Jeremy, who feel uneasy and do not like Donald Trump's character. They feel he does not respect the rule of law. These are still conservative people, so they're still going to vote in a conservative way, but they do not like Donald Trump personally.
It sounds like the caller that we just had from Houston. Let's go to Matthew, who's in Rock Island, Illinois. Matthew, welcome to The Middle. What did you think of the debate?
Like everyone else has stated, it's been very civil, but really appreciate how there was a lot less hate towards each other. But in addition, they really focused on policy really well, especially on the Democratic side. I really think they did a better job laying the foundation of their policies and explaining it better due to the fact that it was a very civil debate. We, of course, that emphasized where we kind of lean towards, especially Democratic side. But we try to have a little bit open mind. But due to the fact that they did a really good job explaining, especially on the Democratic side, of their policies, laying their foundation, what they want to do, what they see in the future, and being more optimistic, that really helped us out.
Matthew, thank you. Charlie Mahtesian, do you think this was a very unusual year because instead of the Commission on Presidential Debates, this nonpartisan organization, being involved, we had the candidates, the campaigns negotiating directly with TV networks. In this case, it was CBS that got to do this debate. You think that this is going to be the model going forward now?
If the environment stays as polarized, it's going to have to be because I think neither side trusts the commission, despite all of its efforts to sort of stay nonpartisan, especially the Republicans. I mean, this has been bubbling up, during the Trump era, so 8 years. They've lost all trust in the commission, and so I think what we see going forward will be more formats like this, where there's lots of negotiations with the networks to do it, to try and get sort of either the moderators they think work best for them, and to have more control over the process, simply because there's no trust at all in the institutions that over time have governed our debates. And so as a result of that, I think we have to have a new model going forward.
Tolliver, we heard that Senator Jack Kennedy clip. These debates can often come to be remembered by a single line.
Yeah, and easily one of the most famous lines in vice presidential debate history came from Ross Perot's 1992 running mate, Admiral James Stockdale.
Admiral Stockdale, your opening statement, please, sir.
Who am I? Why am I here? I'm not a politician. Everybody knows that. So don't expect me to use the language of the Washington Insider. 37 years in the Navy, and only one of them up there in Washington. And now I'm an academic.
Wow, that's so existential. I don't know who I am.
Why am I here? There was another moment, by the way, in a 1992 debate of Tolliver with Admiral Stockdale where he actually had his hearing aid turned off, and somebody said something. He's like, "I'm sorry, I had my hearing aid off. Can you repeat that for me?"
Relatable.
Wow. Those were the days. We'll be right back with more of your calls on the debate on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world. The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, Ryder, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here and my wife. Boom, boom.
This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories, all caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's Place, black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they was dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place. A story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. We're asking you this hour for your thoughts on the vice presidential debate between Governor Tim Walz and Senator J.D. Vance. You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also reach out to us at listentothemiddle.com. I'm joined by USA Today chief political correspondent Phillip Bailey and Politico senior politics reporter Charlie Mahtesian. Tolliver, I just got a text from a listener, a friend in Chicago, who said, "Are the callers tonight on sedatives? They do sound a little slow, but it's later in the night.
It's
People
late,
could just
yeah.
be tired."
Just chilling. Yeah, it's fine.
Let's get back to the phones and go to Chris, who's in Baltimore, Maryland. Hi, Chris. Welcome to The Middle. Go ahead.
I think it was a very interesting format that they did. I love the way that the first questions they came out with were things that just happened in the first, recently.
Yeah,
And
they
just
talked
forced them
about
to,
the situation in the Middle East. They talked about the hurricane as well.
Yeah, and, nobody was wearing earrings, so you couldn't say they were fed the answers. But that being said, J.D. Vance very almost showed some humanity. And I mean that where he started to talk about, actual problems, but then he kind of veered off into the election denial and clear just lies. And, I wasn't too much of a fan of that one.
Okay.
But also, the same time when they called out Walz for what he said, he was in Tiananmen Square.
Right.
Sure, the man may have got it wrong by a few months. And then J.D. Vance also.
So you're forgiving of Walz in this debate. Do you think Walz did okay in this debate, Chris? Just briefly.
I think he did.
Okay. Thank you very much for that call, Charlie Mahtesian. Another caller there who was upset about what they saw as J.D. Vance not telling the truth, and of course in this debate, the moderators were not supposed to fact check, and actually J.D. Vance said at one point, in a moment that I think will probably go viral, you weren't supposed to fact check us. That wasn't part of the agreement.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a big issue after the Trump-Harris debate, and I think that looking back, the people of the network probably and probably the Vance team regrets that they didn't really fill out the formal language on the rules to the debate, because there was an understanding that there would be no formal fact checking during the debate, but it wasn't totally locked down, and I think there was you see some resentment flash there from Vance about that. But I think overall, and as the caller mentioned, and we've heard a couple times today, lots of folks, particular if you're on the left, you feel that maybe Vance was not being himself or hiding aspects of him. I think what we ended up seeing from him tonight, and you saw that in him calling them out on the fact checking, is we saw a bit of a fuller spectrum J.D. Vance, meaning we've seen a lot of the caricature of Vance out there, which is why I think his numbers aren't great, why he's not seen as sort of a home run of a vice presidential pick. But today you saw some of his ability to articulate policy. You saw a little bit more approachability than you typically see out of him, but you also saw some of the parts of him, snapping at the media and things like that. So it's just for the first time, I thought, on a national stage over a long period of time, we got to see the different facets of Vance.
Let's go to Daniel, who's in Kansas City, Missouri. Daniel, welcome to The Middle. What did you think of the debate?
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to bring up how J.D. Vance seemed to kind of dodge a few questions, specifically like how like gun violence in America, when we clearly have the highest rates of childhood gun deaths in the world. That's it's unspeakable and it's unaccounted for in the Republican stance, like how they're going to deal with that. But more importantly, I think it's very important that J.D. Vance didn't answer the question of how they would respond to Donald Trump losing this election. Will they or will they not certify electors, or will they find alternate electors? Like, he doesn't have an answer to that, and Donald Trump doesn't either. The parallels between the debates that we saw a couple weeks ago with between Trump and Harris,
right,
and now between Walz and Vance, they're still not answering the question if they will concede the election in a peaceful way, and instead they divert to other talking points, and that's extremely concerning to anyone who wants to continue democracy in any reasonable sort of way that we.
And Daniel, did you think that Tim Walz did a good enough job in pushing back against that?
I think Tim Walz did a good job of it in the debate, given the platform that he had. I think it's a tough point when there's an entire right wing pushing against him in this, but I think he responded very well in pointing to the facts and how democracy should be run, because he and Kamala Harris have a history, a track record of upholding the Constitution and doing things the right way.
Right.
And what they're fighting against are a wing of this country that really wants to overthrow that. And that's hard to push up against when people are saying, no, we should just overthrow the entire institution. That's wrong, and it's undemocratic. And I think Tim Walz did a good job of pushing up against it as best he could.
Daniel, I think we've got it there, Daniel. Thank you so much for that. And Phillip Bailey, a lot of people, as they watch this, think, well, why wasn't that question about accepting the results of the election further up in the debate? Why was it at the very end when probably many people who didn't love the civil policy debate that we had might have tuned out?
Well, look, I think that some of what you're seeing in this debate, and Charlie spoke to this a moment ago, is that our media is very fractured. I'm very interested to see, for example, how people who watch the debate, maybe the first time tuning in, look at J.D. Vance versus those who are getting a lot of the information from cable news, but also on social media, where J.D. Vance has been ripped to shreds, to be quite honest. Democrats have done an excellent job of depicting him in the most negative light. And that's not the J.D. Vance who we saw on this debate stage. Why do I think it came up later in the debate? I'll be quite honest. I think that the Harris campaign in particular, unlike the Biden campaign, one of the key differences, Harris does not emphasize January 6th in the way Joe Biden does. Joe Biden, when he was in charge of this campaign and he was the nominee, the Biden campaign talked a lot about Donald Trump being this threat to democracy, specifically talking about the actions of his supporters who broke into the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Harris is not doing that. She looks at that probably more as looking toward the past. Mm-hmm. She emphasizes joy. She emphasizes turning the page and looking to the future. So the reason why I think it doesn't come up as much is because Democrats are de-emphasizing it. It is not the animation of why they're coming out to vote in this election. And in a razor-thin election like this, which is exceedingly close, I think we're hearing what the two campaigns want to talk about in these final 5 weeks. Trump and Vance want to talk about immigration and migrants and the border. Kamala Harris and Governor Walz want to talk about abortion rights, the future, reproductive rights, access of those rights by women, and the future of the country and getting back to the civility we saw today.
Let's go to another swing state, Georgia. Rachel is in Duluth, Georgia. Rachel, what did you think of the debate?
Well, I viewed it as someone would view two boxers in the ring, and Vance was smooth. He had a lot of fast footwork. He did a great job, but then Walz delivered the knockout blow in my mind when he asked, or when he brought up the topic of January the 6th. And I was reminded that I am not voting so much for Kamala, though I would love to see a woman president. I am voting against a very delusional man, Trump.
I just want to ask you one thing, Rachel. You say you're not voting for Kamala as much as you're voting against Trump. What is it that you would like to see from Kamala Harris if you were going to actually vote for her as opposed to just voting against Trump?
So I am not totally on board with Roe. I believe that abortion is here and it's here to stay, but I think that we do need guidelines as to when an abortion can be performed. And I think that we forget that there is someone else, an unborn child, who does not have a voice. And you don't hear that much anymore. It's gotten real quiet on that front. But I search my heart, and but I'm still going to have to vote for Kamala Harris. I still am, because I'm not going to vote for someone like Donald Trump.
Rachel, thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate it. Charlie Mahtesian, an interesting voice there from Georgia. Obviously, not going to vote for Trump, but is not happy about the Democratic position on restoring Roe.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that we haven't heard more about the abortion discussion tonight from callers, because I was really struck by some of Vance's comments there. I mean, I think I was struck by his claiming that he didn't support a national ban when clearly he has in the past. But what I was really surprised at was the tenor, was the tone of his discussion. It was almost apologetic, and at one point saying, almost throwing himself before the mercy of the public, like, I really wish my party had handled it better. I wish we talked about it better, which was really striking to me in the way he was talking about this, and talking with almost like a level of humility for the way the party has sort of botched it and careened back and forth. So that really struck me. And at the same time, I was really just surprised that he would take that approach, but it also underscores the real trouble they're having with women voters. Like, if you take a look at the gender gap, and this is true in any poll you look at, the gender gap is just a chasm this year. It might be worse than it's been in the past. President Trump has always done very poorly with women voters. It may be even worse now. And you can see they're really struggling for a message. And you may remember the president's remarks a couple weeks ago about women never have to worry about abortion again because of me, and just sort of these ham-handed plays for women's votes that just shows they're listing, they're just twisting in the wind and trying to find any way to sort of close that gap, and I think talk differently on the issue of abortion rights.
Let's go to Amy, who's in Los Angeles, California. Amy, what did you think?
Well, I'm a childless cat and dog owner, or lady, I should say. So, I got to agree with what you were just talking about with abortion. And the last caller you had, the Democrats consistently miss a very easy layup, in my opinion. Like when Vance was talking about the 9-month abortion, which that's a medical issue. That's not because someone just decided, you know what, on second thought, I'm just going to have an abortion. It's always medical, right? And so I think Walz could have just easily got out of there and almost got in a corner and trapped by Vance on that, which kind of then brought some legitimacy to the lie that Donald Trump's been repeating over and over again, despite being fact-checked consistently. So I think, the abortion issue is most of the abortions that happen after like the 20th month are because of medical issues, right? So I just wish the Democrats were better about that, because I think we could get that late-term abortion settled for, once and for all, because it's like less than 1% of all abortions, and yet that's the extreme that they go to. But the one thing I want to mention about where I thought Walz did a really good job, because J.D. Vance's job tonight was to seem likable, and which seemed very almost too slick. Like, he said a lot of things, but he didn't really say anything. Whereas Walz, I think one of his best comebacks, and I haven't heard really anybody talking about, is when Vance was talking about federal lands for home building. And, Walz put it in like, well, I'm in Minnesota. We don't have that much federal land. So how are you going to solve that?
Right.
I thought that was it just gave an example of a lot of the Trump policies are not well thought out.
Yeah.
They're policy that you could write on a bar napkin.
Amy, that is a topic that I did not expect to come up in the debate, but thank you for your call about that. Phillip, I think a theme here that I'm hearing from a lot of callers is they kind of wish that Walz had done something slightly different than he did, but they were kind of on his side maybe to begin with.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I think Democrats have, for a number of years, like George McFly in Back to the Future, they want to see him punch the bully. Right? They want to see them knock out Biff Tannen. And when that doesn't happen, there's a letdown. And I think there were a number. I mean, Walz did not bring up the cat lady's comment at all. Right? That was a layup politically, and it has been for some time for Democrats who've leaned into that issue about Vance having these sort of outdated beliefs about gender roles and family structure. Walz didn't touch that. He didn't really lean in heavily into a lot of these issues. And part of that, I think, is also, look, it's not Donald Trump you're going against. You're going against J.D. Vance. That's not the top of the ticket. The two of them did go at the top of the ticket, respectively. And I think that, we have to remember that vice presidential debates, you're not voting for the VP. You're not voting for the running mate. You're voting for the top of the ticket. So that could be one of the reasons why Walz didn't want to do that. If I attack J.D. Vance a whole lot, I get a lot of cheers from the base and the liberal base of my party. But I'm trying to look in this exceedingly tight race where it's going to be a handful, like a really small number of voters who are deciding this. That's who the two candidates today, I think, we're speaking to, not their bases.
Okay. Amazingly, we have run out of time for calls, and I want to let our callers know, if you're still on the line, you're welcome to leave us a message. We do listen to all of them, or just call in at 844-4MIDDLE. But before we let our guests go, I just want to ask each of you briefly, Charlie Mahtesian, do you think there will be another debate between Trump and Harris before the election?
That's a great question. I would have said no before the debate. Now I'm not so sure, because I can envision a scenario where Trump was watching it and, sees that Vance did, held his own at least. And maybe some people think he won the debate and will be thinking, do I want him to have the last word? And when you think about the sort of narcissistic impulses of the former president, I could almost see him rethinking the position and thinking, you know what, that's not so hard. I could do that.
Yeah.
And particularly if he's at a deficit in the polls that late in the month, maybe. I could see it now.
Phillip, what do you think, quickly?
I think that Donald Trump's previous job before president he was the host of The Apprentice. And I think showmanship throughout his life has been the primary thought of Donald Trump. I think he will absolutely ask for a debate probably the week of the election after watching this.
Well, if they do it, we'll be back with another post-debate special on The Middle. I want to thank my guests for the hour, senior politics editor at Politico, Charlie Mahtesian, and USA Today chief political correspondent, Phillip Bailey, who now and always did hold the record for the most appearances on The Middle. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll be back later this week asking you what the top issue for you in this election is. We have the two former governors of Tennessee, one Democrat and one Republican, on our panel for that. Tolliver, how can they reach us?
You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE, or you can write to us at listentothemiddle.com. You can also sign up for our free weekly newsletter.
The Middle is brought to you by Long Nook Media, distributed by Illinois Public Media in Urbana, Illinois, and produced by Harrison Patino, Danny Alexander, Sam Burmistaz, and John Barth. Our intern is Annika Deschler. Our technical director this week is Steve Mork. Our theme music was composed by Andrew Haig. Thanks to the more than 410 public radio stations that are making it possible for people across the country to listen to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, and I will talk to you again later this week.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories, all caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather. In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
When segregation was a law, one mysterious Black club owner, Charlie Fitzgerald, had his own rules.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
It was like stepping in another world.
Was he a businessman, a criminal, a hero?
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
Charlie's Place, from Atlas Obscura and Visit Myrtle Beach. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.